if 2020 was X. Facebook has been flooded with memes trying to release some of today's stress with a little humor. My favorite was titled, If 2020 Was a Slide, with a picture of a slide that looked like a cheese grater. Yeah, that's kind of the way it feels, isn't it? Well, what if 2020 was a Bible verse? My vote would be for Judges 8:16, which records Gideon using brambles to beat the elders of a city who refused to give aid to his army that was defeating their enemy. Today's Morning Minutes in the Bible on Throwback Thursday reaches back 49 years for some thoughts on discipline. From Plain Talk Magazine, March 1971, to Spank or Not by Jim R. Everett. I learned a lot from the cotton stalk, peach tree limb, and 1x4. Primarily that there are types of behavior that are unacceptable. Not one of those lessons was enjoyable, but most were very needed. But then Gideon took the elders of the city and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth. Taught means correction, and could be translated threshed, Judges 8:16. Punishment of children for wrongdoing is primarily the responsibility of parents. The chimney corner scripture, spare the rod and spoil the child, is not unlike Solomon's statement. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Proverbs 13, verse 24. This does not justify beating the child black and blue. However, there are times when only the imprint of the whip impresses a lesson on the heart. Permissive parents supply the hammer for their own heartbreak. While punishment and discipline sometimes become a necessity, there is a limit to motivation by spanking. When I was 4, Mother thrashed me so many times one day that the last one didn't hurt. I just took a deep breath, turned, and walked away. The only things you can teach a child by the rod is that misbehavior brings disapproval and pain. But if no is all he hears, and the smack of the hand is the only teacher, his character becomes negatively lopsided. The will to do good should also be instilled in his heart. Paul reproved Peter rather sharply, Galatians 2, verses 11 through 14. He also sternly rebuked brethren for keeping company with a brother who was a fornicator, 1 Corinthians 5, verses 1 and following, and called some deceitful workers and false apostles, 2 Corinthians 11:13. Not only did he reprove sinners himself, but he also charged Timothy, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all longsuffering and doctrine, 2 Timothy 4:2. There are times when such is needed, but let one never confuse reproof with vindictiveness. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, God said, Romans 12, verse 19. When I first began preaching, I felt it was my responsibility to lash those who were not conducting themselves properly. No thorns, just stern rebuke. I had no desire to hurt them, but felt that if they knew what was amiss, they would appreciate the spanking later, as I have now that years have passed. I learned after using many different kinds of whips that a steady diet of negative lessons only served to depress the congregation and frustrate me. The problem was not that the members didn't understand what was wrong, but they had a greater desire to do other things and be other places. Several years have passed, and I continue to reprove sin and sinners. I use the whip if it is needed, but a sound spanking helps not the depressed, discouraged, and weak. They need encouragement. It really doesn't help the person to try and beat him into subjection. The man without the will is about as tasty as the lobster's shell. Christ wants men who will to do his will. Well, Jim, thanks for the words of wisdom. Since 2020 has beaten us with brambles, perhaps we should focus on providing soothing comfort for the suffering. That doesn't mean that some, maybe all of us, won't need a spanking from time to time, but let's make sure it's necessary and comes from a heart of love and concern, and then follow it up with loving encouragement. Well, thanks for watching Morning Minutes in the Bible on Throwback Thursday. I hope you were encouraged. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenney hoping you have a great day.